Pickle. Let's recap a little bit of the college football weekend and talk some ball. Talk some ball.
That
is
is
what the kids say?
Objectively what our job is here.
We asked some burning questions on Friday, or on Thursday rather. Let's answer those questions in the affirmative. What did we ask on Thursday? I don't know. I've drank a lot.
That's fair.
Of water. Very hydrated. And I'm ready, that's what I'm saying, to answer these questions.
Sure, fella. First one, Baylor. What is the showcase matchup Saturday morning in Waco as they figured it out and took down the Longhorns?
Yeah, I'll tell you what it was. And when we mentioned this all came down to, in my humble opinion, it all came down to whether or not Texas was able to run the ball. This is the Texas team that I think is reliant on running the ball, getting Bijan Robinson going, and Baylor, plain and simple, stacked him up. They held him to 116 yards, or held Texas rushing to 116 yards on the ground. They can live with that. They were ineffective running the ball, plain and simple, and that was the difference maker in that one. Mm-hmm. Obviously, when Texas was able to go out there and took a lead and Baylor was able to come back, but that is, to me, look, that was the situation where it came into the most focus, where Baylor's down double digits in the second half. At that point, what Texas wants to do is go on long, sustained drives and not give Baylor an opportunity to get back to that. The fact that they were able to hold the running game down and keep them from running out that clock is the reason why Baylor's 7-1.
Right.
And the reason why they went away with a win. And yeah, it came down to that. Texas, when they run the ball, is pretty darn hard to stop. Mm-hmm. Texas, when they can't run the ball, is pretty average.
Yeah.
That's about the long and short of it.
And I think that's really like a positive for Bears fans too to think about, is even after, like, Gary Bohannon hadn't thrown an interception since he had been named the starter, and then he comes out of the gate, throws 2 of them, and it's like, well, shoot, are we going to be able to pull this out? And to know that your defense can kind of not hang their head on that and go back out there was huge for them.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest factor in this game, and Baylor comes away with a win. What's next, Pickle?
Up next, a yucky game. Texas State, can they hold Louisiana under 225 rushing yards? And I mean, a 45-0 shutout was just.
Well, hold on, Pickle.
Did they
hold
them, though?
Here's the good news.
There is no good news when you lose 45-0.
Let me make sure I got this right. I'm seeing that they held them to 160-something yards of rush.
Which is even more embarrassing to go 45-0.
They lose 45-0. They did hold them. Let's make sure we get this right. They held them. No, never mind. 282. That's removing garbage time. 282. So no. Look. Here's the thing, because I'm looking at advanced score and they remove garbage time. Here's the thing. I think this is rock bottom for Texas State.
It has to be.
I think this is it, and I'm not. I don't know if firing Jake Spavital is the answer. It may be the only thing they have left in their bag is to do this. He got the dreaded vote of confidence this week from the athletics department. Said we know we're disappointed in the football team, but Coach Spavital has our full support. That is usually followed by a guy being fired. Mm-hmm. This was a disastrous game for Texas State. This is as bad probably as they've played all year, and that's certainly saying something. Louisiana's pretty good, but it doesn't excuse that. This was a horrific game for them, and anything they wanted to do worked for Louisiana, and they just couldn't move the ball at all. I mean, they were miserable. Their success rate in this game was 37%. That is not going to cut it.
That's the thing for Spavital to be able to stick around at the beginning of the year. Really, what we talked about was you just have to go out there and do something, and it's like he can't even get them to do something to save the job.
The other thing is they were consistently putting themselves in like third and long.
Yeah, and you can't shoot yourself in the foot.
They could not convert it. So yeah, bad times in San Marcos. What's next, Pickle?
More just bad times. Who is the game more important to, North Texas or Rice? This one had to go into overtime in the Sicko Bowl. 30-24, North Texas found a way to pull out a game that they just literally tried so hard to hand Rice.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually thought that in a lot of ways. I thought Rice was the better team in this game.
Oh, yeah. No doubt about it.
But they plain and simple just couldn't come up with the plays when they counted. And credit to Texas State. That's what they needed to do. A lot of this game, I think, like little things like special teams ended up being like making a big difference. That they were able to, win field position battles and things like that. And North Texas was able to kind of gut out a win. This was ugly. This was horrific. I don't think either of these teams feel good about it. Because I think that they went up against a bad team and they looked like that. For Rice, this is, I think, very concerning. I'm not saying Mike Bloomgren's job's in jeopardy.
No.
Because I think it's just a different situation at Rice. But to follow up what was a really impressive victory, right, and a really impressive performance in the win over UAB, to go out there and to really struggle like that, I thought was really disappointing. So, it was yucky. It was bad.
Consistency has to start at some point for Rice. Like you can't.
And by the way,
I do
it's worth mentioning that Wiley Green got hurt in this game.
Yeah.
And before he came out, Wiley Green was actually playing okay. I would say, I'm not saying that would have changed the game, because Jake Constantine, I don't think he came in here and lost the game for him, but you do wonder. And certainly for teams that are struggling, you need all hands on deck. And whenever you have to go to the backup, when you're a struggling team and you go to your backup quarterback, especially considering Wiley Green had looked so good against UAB.
Yeah,
I don't know. This was disappointing.
Well, especially, and this is just one of those things too. Like we say that Wiley Green was the clear-cut starter, but then it's like they've been switching all year anyway. Yeah. So that's just the consistency.
Right. What's next, Pickle?
Up next, it was our small school game of the week. The question was, what does Howard Payne have to do to spring the big ASC upset, and they lost 38-14 against Hardin-Simmons.
Yeah, they gave him a little bit of run. This game was close into at halftime. I want to say it was like 17-14 or something like that at halftime. And basically Howard Payne kind of spit the bit early in the second half, and it was 14-7 at half. Right, Howard Payne was down. Hardin-Simmons then returned the next kickoff. And then it was an interception, and it was like over from there. Give credit to Hardin-Simmons. One of the things that we said is that they have had trouble containing big passing offenses, and certainly they were able to they were able to come up with big plays. Most notably, that they came up with 5 interceptions.
Yeah.
Landon McKinney got his. He threw for 255, but he also threw and a touchdown, but he also threw 5 picks. And so give credit to Hardin-Simmons. They're going up against a big, high-powered passing attack, which they've struggled against, and they were able to come out with the win and come up with the big plays. So, I think Howard Payne, as we'll talk about with Corey Hogue tomorrow, Howard Payne, I think they still got to feel really good about where they're going this season. But obviously, whenever you play a team that's really good like this, you got to play perfect, and they certainly did not do themselves any favors. What's next, Pickle?
Up next, we head back to Big 12 action. The question was, what is a reasonable expectation for Texas Tech the rest of the way? A 52-21 loss after losing their coach the week before. It was to Oklahoma, by the way.
To Oklahoma. This game was never going to go any other way. You certainly don't want to be on the wrong end of a Caleb Williams just like showcase, like a Caleb Williams Heisman game.
Right.
But we knew the defense was in trouble.
It's been a wild week out there.
I actually thought that Donovan Smith came in and played okay at quarterback.
Yeah.
I thought he played okay. And I think that at times the offense looked like they had a little bit of life. They weren't able to run the ball worth crap, but they were able to throw the ball a bit. Look, it's a lost season for Tech. They were never going to go to Norman and win this game. Most especially, they were never going to go to Norman and win this game with an interim coach.
Right.
It is what it is. They're tougher game. There are still games ahead that they got to feel like they got to go out there and win. The one now you wish you had. Well, there's 2 of them, right? You gotta wish you got the game against TCU.
Yep.
That was the game you needed to have. Once that slipped through your fingers, that was the one that was really the devil.
Realistically, the way Texas is playing now, they should have had that one too. So it's just an anomaly there.
All right, what's next, Pickle?
Up next, let's talk about those aforementioned Horned Frogs. Max Duggan over/under on 275.5 total yards. TCU, the game that let go of Gary Patterson after they lose 31-12 in Manhattan.
Okay, so let's first answer the question, which is over/under 275 yards of total offense, and big under. Significant under. Max Duggan ends up getting a grand total of 65 yards.
Oh, Jeez.
He got benched in this game for Chandler Morris. And
It was just a wet fart.
look, the defense is bad.
Mm-hmm.
We knew the defense is bad, but this is what happens when the offense just doesn't show up.
Yep.
And it was, and by the way, Zach Evans didn't play in this game. It was horrific. This was, look, I'm not saying that Gary Patterson, this is one of those things that after the fact, if you look back at this game, you go, oh yeah, I guess I can see that.
Mm-hmm.
It was a horrifying game. Now, I thought actually Chandler Morris looked okay in relief. But Max Duggan, if he's going to go out there and spit the bit like this, he could not be protected. The offensive line really failed him. They weren't able to run the ball with any sort of consistency. They had one basically long run from Kendra Miller, and that was it. This was a bad.
It was awful.
This was. It wasn't rock bottom in the same way that Texas State was rock bottom, but this was the worst TCU performance in years.
I quit watching it.
It's awful.
It
was awful.
It was not enjoyable in the slightest.
It was objectively not fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
What's next, Pickle?
Up next, so sad here. UTEP is 0-25-1 all time in Eastern Time Zone. Do they get their first ever win? Make that 0-26-1 as they drop it 28-25 against FAU. And darn it,
they tried. Look, here's the thing. They were this thing when I'll be honest when FAU ran for a touchdown to put them up 2010 early in the fourth, I flipped it off.
Yeah.
Give them credit. They came back and they stormed back and they had an opportunity late.
They kept fighting.
But in the end it was not enough. A lot of it just came down to the fact that their offense just didn't do enough. Their offense, they only had, is this right? They had 211 yards of offense? Mm-hmm. That seems bad, guys. I'm going to be honest. That seems real bad. Yeah, they had, no, that's not true. I'm sorry. I was looking at the wrong number. Gavin Hardison actually had a pretty decent game. But the offense was just not able to come up with it. It was
too little too late.
It really was. And
if you would have had 5 more minutes, it might have been different. But a little bit of a slow start.
The other thing is, I think what we learned about and what we know now about UTEP, because this is basically only twice that they have played what we would call a negative game state. Mm-hmm. They have had to chase, right? They are not built to chase.
No.
They've got to play from ahead.
Well, and
they have to.
You start to think, too, with just the way that program has been for so many years, I'm sure that mentally there's a little bit of a, now we have to try and do way too much to get us back up. Dana Dimmel has done such a good job this year of kind of implementing that winning culture, but ultimately you go back to your old ways when you're having to chase like that.
Yeah, it was, look, it was disappointing, but in the end, kind of felt like they were going to come back to earth. It is amazing that they can't win on the East Coast. That's probably,
I know, yeah.
It's probably, honestly, it's probably just more, it's more random than it is telling. Do you know what I mean? It's just it's more indicative of the fact that UTEP's been a program that struggles and as opposed to they're cursed in the Eastern Time Zone.
Right.
But it is interesting that now they're 0-26.
Yeah, it's two different time zones. Yeah. So.
All right, what's next, Pickle?
Up next, the game of the year there. The question was who you got, Cougs or Ponies?
Look, I believe I took them Cougs.
You did, and with a 44-37 win. How about Houston? I mean, they could do this.
Look, the biggest play of the game was, of course, the game-winning kickoff return for a touchdown by Marcus Jones. Mm-hmm. Remarkable. Give SMU a lot of credit for fighting back.
Oh, yeah.
That they were down early in this game, and it kind of looked like, in the first quarter, kind of looked like Houston might run away from them.
Yep.
And run away and hide. SMU had stomach for the fight. They came back. In the end, came up with one individual play that was just remarkable. And now, look, Houston's got to feel like they're in the driver's seat to play for an AAC championship.
Yeah, you have to.
Where they'll play Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. And they could certainly play spoiler. I'll say that. Yep. I hate to break it to you, but Houston's not getting in the playoff. But they can win a conference, and they can certainly ruin a lot of dreams along the way. They're going to be favored in the rest of their games.
Yeah.
And they're going to be favored pretty considerably in most of these games. So I think everything's in front of them now. SMU, look, you got to hope now Houston kind of slips up and you're able to go and maybe sneak back into it. But in the end, What a game! What a win for Houston! What a win for Dana Dimel, or not Dana Dimel, Dana Holgerson. It just struck me we have two coaches named Dana in this state. That's the biggest win for him at Houston by a pretty considerable margin. And those are the kind of vibes that he was hoping to bring.
And that's what I feel like we expected when he got hired. Like this is the program that we expected him to have, not the last 2 insane years.
Dana Holgerson was hired to win games like this, plain and simple, and he did. Because you know what? There's a lot of other coaches who were hired to win big games, and they don't. Jim Harbaugh has been holding on to his job for a long time, and he hasn't won a game that matters at Michigan, right? You win the games that matter, and the rest takes care of itself. That was a game that mattered there for Dana Holgerson, and he came away with a win. All right, there it is. There's our college football recap. Hey, thanks for watching this clip here on YouTube. If you like this kind of stuff and you want more of it, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And remember, you can watch us live every weekday at noon at texasfootball.com, Facebook, Twitch, or here on YouTube. And if you want more of the best coverage of football in the state of Texas, check out texasfootball.com and become a Dave Campbell's Texas Football Insider at texasfootball.com/subscribe.